having so many issues. All right, I'm having some technical difficulties. My fault, guys, but I'm going to get started in about 2 minutes. All right, creatives, let's try this again. I am sorry about that. So we have, and I want to make sure that you can see this. So let me know if you have any trouble seeing or hearing. I want to be sure that you're all set. So what I was saying before I went offline is at the part 1, made this a bright aqua green and white background. But in the original, I actually mixed in some sky blue. So I have sky blue and bright aqua green on my paint palette here with white, and that's what I mixed up. If you don't have sky blue, no big deal. It's totally fine. You can just continue with another coat to really vibrant up that, that background. All right, so that's what I'm gonna do now. I mixed up some white, bright aqua green, and sky blue. This is a nice, vibrant medium value. I want enough for that background behind the ears, and that's what I'll apply. Okay. So if you guys are all good to go, I'm going to get started painting with my angle brush just around the back here. All right, so here we go. Part 2 of this joyful, whimsical painting. I hope you guys enjoyed part 1. It was super short and sweet. That way we don't have to rush. We can just paint and not feel rushed for time, because I actually only have a certain window of time that someone can watch my kiddos, and I feel bad like rushing you guys. So this works out just great. It's so nice just to add that second coat. I mean, I tell you, first layer, it's beautiful, but man, when you add that second layer, or better yet, that third, it is just so satisfying. It just looks like so much brighter and more vibrant. I'm not going to forget about my sides. And also, something I mentioned in part 1, you don't have to do this on canvas. You can do it on paper, mixed media paper, just like I did with the original. But you can also do it on canvas too. Whatever you have available, whatever you're more comfortable using. So I'm going to take my time here because I know some of you are just starting your paintings, just logging in. But I will grab the next colors, which, so if you're just logging in and just watching, it's sky blue and bright aqua green and white that I mixed up for a background. The sky blue is not mandatory. It's something I actually left out in the part 1. That was my fault. But you can just go with your bright aqua green and white just for a second coat. Or if you want to skip that part and you move on to the blanket just like I'm doing now, join us in that. I'm going to actually, the color, the special unique color that I don't often use for that is the gray purple by Master's Touch, my favorite brand. So that's the color I'm going to go in for the pattern over top. And I'll also add some violet to my paint palette. And this is just a made-up pattern. It's just squares, really simple. And that's with gray purple and violet, and I'll add some white to that gray purple. All right, so I'm going to grab my paint palette. And here we go. So I love this color, guys. This is such a beautiful, like blue violet, but more on the purple side, I feel like. And I'm going to add white to that. And we're going to start creating. So the negative space is going to be the purple. Over top here, carefully, we're going to add these like diamond shaped pattern, square shaped pattern over top. And it's going to be at an angle. And I want it to stand out over top that violet, which is why I'm going to add a decent amount of white to it. And purple's a pretty strong dominant color, so it won't really take much white. I think I'm going to go with the size 1 round brush from the Detail Brush Pack, or the Variety Brush Pack by Arteza. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in this corner, make a square here, make another square that's attached to it, and when I'm painting, I'm going to pretend that I'm going over that mouth, and if it helps you, you can do that. I'm not going to do that here. And then I'm just going to keep branching off from there so that it all looks like it's just one row going at an angle. And it's a blanket, so we're not making it perfect. We want to have some variety down here. So first, I'm going to start with that square, okay? Tell me if you guys can see all right. I'm going to start with the square right in the lower left corner. And I'm using the size 1 round brush, Arteza brush from the Variety Pack. And I'll fill that in. So I'll make the outline of the square, and then I will fill it in each time. Okay. And you want to do your best to keep these lines relatively straight and it come to a point. Okay. All right, next one. I'm going to literally just continue a line down from here, from on the other side of that line, okay? So if there was a line right here, I would just continue down. And same with that one. If there's a line that went like this, I would just pick it up and carry it over. And these are pretty big squares that I'm going to make as if it's that corner is going to go underneath that little lip. And then with a straight line, I'll bring it down. And see how the purple is the negative space behind it? And with the lighter colors, it brings it forward. Okay, so I'll fill this in. And now, so I have that corner covered up. I have this corner covered up, but I want this to kind of look as if it's going to start right here. Pretend the blanket's up here, and then we're just going to continue it up. So I'm going to start right in this corner, keeping my lines as straight as possible while keeping an eye on like the length of here so I don't go over that length. I'm going to stop about there and bring it down. These two squares are really helping me fill in the other ones. And I do my best to bring it to a point there, and I'll pick it up and now go as if they're the line carried up right from there, and that'll be the corner of my next square. But I want it to be right in line with the other ones. Okay, and then keeping my eye on the length. I'm going to say this is like 2 inches, maybe a little less than 2 inches. Okay, and then I'll outline it. I'll stop about here, I think. Yeah, stop about there, fill that in. And making sure that these points are pretty pointy. And actually, I'm not going to move any further because if there was a square, it would be right around here, but it's getting so much darker because of the shadows that are being created. So I'm actually not going to add a square there. That'll be when we darken up this area, we'll blend it in with the purples. But I am going to add just a little bit of purple. I have some of that leftover lighter indigo of my brush. Because of the shadow being created from the lip, I'm actually going to add a little bit of purple, and before this dries, I'm going to blend it into the corner here. Just like that. Add a little bit more to darken that up, just a smidge more. Add that right by the ear, where there's getting a little bit of a cast shadow. And this should be damp for you. If not, just pull in more of this color to blend it out. Okay. All right. I'm going to do that bit again right here just to make sure it's a nice shadow right there. And then I'll also do it to this one. This one's actually getting probably the most shadow. So that's why before it dries, I'm going to blend that in with just a little bit of the violet. I could have added that indigo, but you know what? I kind of want to tie these colors together. And there's already some purple in this indigo, so I can use violet. Oh dear, I kind of wish I didn't do that. Oh well, I can always fix that up. And here we go. We're going to continue on with this mix of white and the gray purple. And let's go back to outlining our squares. So I'm going to follow this line. Actually, I'll work down first. Let's work down. And we're just going to be going right about here. Right about here. So as if there was a line that went up straight, I'm going to continue that line. I'm resting my hand on this finger right here, my other hand. I do the lot, helps me keep a steady hand. Okay, and I want to keep that about 2 inches, a little less, just like the other squares. And now bring it back down. And then fill it back in. And if it's a little too short, because I think that might be a little too short, I'm going to extend it out a bit. Easy fix, and then fill it in. I like how this breaks up the bottom, gives it like more diversity, more of a design. Kind of these lines that lead your eyes around, as opposed to kind of like the more curving shaped from the ears and the nose and the eyes. This adds a bit more variety and color. All right, so then I'm going to go, I don't really need to add a shadow to that, but we will up here. So I will work on this square that's by right underneath that right ear. I'll carry a line out at that point. I'll just continue it up and off my canvas. And then I'll create the other one that's going more vertical. Joining at a point. And then I'll fill that in. And this one's definitely going to get that shadow, so I'll add in more of the purple to it before it dries. So I'll just pull up, this is purple, or this is violet. I'm just going to pick up a bit of that violet, mix it with the gray purple mixture, and then darken that up. All right. I have a backup candle, guys, because I see how low my candle, I've used this one so much, but I have a backup. So I'm going to make sure we have that light shining the whole time. All right, so finish up wherever you're at on the blanket. I might even want to actually add just another layer. I'm going to grab my size 4 round brush, and all I'm doing, that looks a bit thin. I'm just adding another coat to that square right there. So you continue on if you're working on the blanket. I'm going to start working on the fur, and I like to start with the darkest fur first. This whole area and the ears are brown, but the back right here is gray along with this marking, and the muzzle is gray. And if you want, you can add the mustache. I just thought it was a cute little whimsical thing to add, but you don't have to add it if you don't want to. So I'm going to start adding those browns if I can fit them. So I'm going to start with raw umber. So there's a red-orange tint to Brittany Spaniel brown fur, but I like to start with raw umber first. And to give it some of that red tint, I add burnt sienna. And then a must-have for this breed is definitely raw sienna. Okay, so that's raw umber, burnt sienna, raw sienna. And then because I want to pull out the orange, I'm going to add orange and yellow ochre. So lots of colors in this fur, and I hope I'll be able to make sure you see all the colors. And here we go with orange. And normally I would fill in those eyes, and I think I'll do that before the fur. And that's going to be an orange eye. So I made the left eye orange, the right eye yellow, using the yellow ochre, and actually a bit of violet. Okay, so I'm going to get started soon on those eyes with my detail brushes, and then we'll move to the fur. All right, so the first color, I'll start with the left eye, and that's going to be kind of more the color I'm seeing the reference, which, by the way, you can access in the masterclass. The part 1 of this one, and the traceable and the list of materials, which I'll link in the description. But I'm going to start with, so I have orange and some white. And when I'm doing eyes, I like to start with the medium value first, and then blend in the lights and the darks. I want this to be more orange, so let's test this out. That's orange and white. I'm going to fill in this left eye. That's good. I might have gone too big with this brush, okay? So I'm going to switch to a smaller one. I'm washing this brush off, and now I'm going to move to this is my size 0 spot brush, okay? Size 0 spot brush. And I find the easiest way to do this is just by filling in the entire iris with your medium value first. It's just a lot easier. And you just want to work at a steady pace so that the other values you can blend in while it's wet. So I'm very carefully, this area above the eye, we're going to darken up with our colors soon. So I want to keep this super duper tiny, like a fine, thin line. I'm going to zoom in just so you can see these eyes. I want you to be able to see them. And please let me know in the comments how you're doing. Am I going too fast? Do I need to slow down? How's the sounds? Just keep me posted so you guys can get the best painting in. All right, so I'm going to pick up, I have a clean damp brush. I washed it off, patted it damp, not sopping wet and not dry on my paper towel. I'm going to just pick up a tiniest little bit of my raw umber and blending into that damp orange. I'm going to darken this area up above the eye. I want to give it more of that calm, relaxed look in the eyes. Got to get that emotion right in those eyes. See how I'm kind of curving this shadow around the top? I'm going to make sure my brush is clean and damp, because I'm going to go into a next color. So a way that I like to darken up orange, there's several different ways. I could go in with a blue. I can go in with my sky blue. You can also go in with raw sienna, burnt sienna. Because this is so similar to a brown, that's why I would do those colors. Just because I'm going with a really colorful theme here, I'm going to add just the smallest bit of sky blue and blend it in without added animal fur. Blend it in with the bottom. See, that's a bit too bright, so I'm actually going to pull some paint off, pull in more orange, and spread that shadow on the bottom. Very, very small amount of the sky blue. And I'm just going to curve that medium value around the bottom of the eye, because there's a shadow being created from the ears, but even more so from the headband, the Easter Bunny headband. Okay, so we added the medium value. We added our dark and dark medium values. In a second, after I wash off my brush, we're going to go to our light values. So a way I could lighten up orange is by adding white, but sometimes we don't want to do that because it could make it look really pale, washed out, little dull. So another way is by adding yellow to it. So into a corner of this orange, I'm going to add more white and even more yellow. And that'll be my light value that I add, and it'll blend in to the orange. And I'm going to make that literally just directly bordering the pupil. I'm going to add a little bit more white so it really stands out, and a little bit more yellow. Oh, look at me. I'm putting blue on there. Okay, I love it, love it, love it. And we'll move on to the next one. The next eye, we'll do the exact same thing, but we'll use complementary colors, yellow and purple. I'm going to start with my medium value of yellow, ochre, and white. So I'm going to mix up yellow, ochre, and white again. And let's just fill in the entire right eye. All right. So we have that medium value yellow in there. And last time I went in raw umber, and I'm actually going to do that again for the yellow, but use violet for that outline around the iris. The more subtle one because of the light source. I didn't mention that yet. The light source is coming from the top right, okay? I mentioned that in part 1. We can really tell that by the right, strongest highlights are on the right side of the nose. And we want to show that as well in the eye. So I'll go back to just a little bit of raw umber, darken up the top. I want to make sure there's not too much water left on these detail brushes because they're so small and so few bristles that the water can just drip down, or worse, drip on your painting. So you really want to make sure it's dry enough, but not too dry. So I'm going to blend that in with some of the yellow ochre. I want it not to be as dark as the left side because, again, that light source. So I'm blending in a subtle layer of raw umber into the yellow, and it goes a long way because of how strong this dark brown is. I'll just add a little bit more so that I don't make this dog look too shocked. I want to give it a bit more of a surprise look, but I want to make sure there's a little bit less darkness on that side than that side, but keeping it still dark. Okay, so here I go. I'm going to mix in a little bit of violet now with some of my yellow ochre. And because it's the color complement, I'm able to just subtly darken it around this border, around the eye. And my yellow, the base layer is still dry, still damp. So that's why it really is wise to do the eye work in that eye all at the same time, because then you can blend those colors and slowly build up color by adding more over to, like, slowly. I'll add a bit more violet to that, just a little bit. Now I have a clean damp brush, and what I'm going to do is get rid of some of this line. You see how there's like a really strong line there? I'm going to soften it, and it's kind of like my eraser, and that's just with a clean damp brush. I have a little speck there that I want to get rid of. Little dot. All right, so now let us lighten up that. I'm going to add a little bit more white to a bit of that yellow ochre. Add a second layer that we're just going to lighten up. Okay, so right here, I'm going to add a highlight. There, to strengthen that highlight there. And I'll do the same actually, adding more yellow ochre in this white to a bit of the orange, okay? Because I want to lighten up the highlight on that side now that it's dry. I'm going to pull that out even more with yellow ochre and white into that orange without getting all this paint on my, I'm spreading the paint around my painting. There we go. Okay, well, the shoes on here.
Rosalia is here.
I have Zachary's. Can you give me his socks or his socks on a t-shirt? Thank you.
They're going outside. Hopefully they can find all this stuff. All right, so next we're gonna go to the highlights over top the pupils, which for that you're gonna need a gray. Did I add black? I didn't add black. So here I go, adding some black. And I'm just gonna be adding these over top the pupils, subtle grays, okay? So I just picked up, with a clean brush, picked up some black. I'm gonna also add some white into it. Okay, And that's like a light gray there. I'm just gonna add a little bit to my paintbrush, okay? And on this right eye, there's a really strong highlight right here over top the pupil. And I never like to bring that highlight directly under here. That's where we're getting a shadow from that, well, from the top of the face, but also from that light source. So a light highlight there with a light gray. And I'm actually going to just add very small amount of paint on my brush because it's more subtle, not as bright. And it's going to be underneath that shadow on the left eye. I'm just going to add a little dab right next to it just to really show that that light is strongest on that right side. And we'll actually keep using that gray so that we can get the area around the eye. See that? It needs to be like a medium light gray. And I might need to get my liner brush for that. Yep, I'm going to switch to my liner brush for that. I might need to make that a little lighter. Okay, so I'm going to add more white to that and lighten that up. I'm using, by the way, my 2\0 liner brush. And because I went over some of that outline around the eye, I'm going to go over that very carefully. I'll mix in a little bit of that gray to tone down this one. Excellent. I'm just seeing that I need to make sure that this eye looks more consistent with that. And so what I'm going to do is back into my orange. I'm going to lift up some of that orange just a little bit higher than I made it. And the last thing I'm going to do for these eyes is I'm going to go back to, I'm going to do black with the smallest amount of white, and I'm just going to touch up those pupils that I went into. So how you guys doing on your eyes? You doing good? You ready to move on? So I can cover up my mess. Okay, so I'm going to use my size 2 filbert brush. I'm going to set that aside. That's what I'll start with for the fur. And I like to work on one area at a time. I'm going to work with the right side first, and I'm going to mix up our colors here. I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to kind of zoom out so you can see my paint palette a little bit better. There we go. All right, so I'm going to mix up my colors for the fur. I'm going to start with my dark value of raw umber and burnt sienna. And I need to at least have a dark, medium, and light. So let's move on to our medium value, which I'm going to make with a bit of raw sienna. So that's more raw sienna than burnt sienna. That's my next color, burnt sienna and raw sienna. I'm just mixing up some more. I'll do another medium value, pulling that, that color we just mixed up with added orange. I'm just going to pull in a bit more raw sienna into that, okay? All right, and so for our light value, I'm going to mix up yellow ochre, white, and orange. I'm going to put that down here. So I'm going to do white, yellow ochre, and some orange. All right, so we have two medium values, a dark and a light. I'll add a bit more yellow to this and a bit more white. And we can adjust as we go. All right, so with my size 2 filbert brush, I'm going to be starting with, so I'm going to start with my dark value, but let's just try with our smaller brush, because what I also want to do is create that curve around the eye because of the texture. This is where we're really going to look at our reference, guys. So I have these lines here, and we're going to curve our brush like that with our dark value. So let's just pull in some of this darkest value. And if you watch how I'm curving my lines around this traceable line, I'm actually leaving a gap here because it gets lighter. I'm pulling that all the way to the line where that white marking is, and down. And then I'm going to go straight into the second medium value, so this one right here. I'm going to start blending that the same direction into that dark value, but working to, not going over this strip right here. I'll pull in some more. Now above the eye, it gets dark here, so I'm actually going to go back to my dark value right here. I'm just focusing on my dark and medium values right now. I'm trying not to focus on all the little details, just where it's light and medium, not where it's super bright. Now to join that and to get some blending, I'm going to go into my light value. Okay, this is that light value now. I'm going to carefully work to the left of that eye. And following the direction that I just applied, I'm going to connect those areas. with some lines cutting into that. I'll pick some of that paint up again, work around the bottom of the eye. And I'll actually carry this light value up like that. All right, so again, I am just gonna keep working in one area and kind of expanding out, but blending into what I just painted. So I am working the light value now into that medium and dark value. This also goes down. I'm gonna pick up some more, bring it down to here. That light is really hitting there pretty strong. We're just piecing the puzzle together. All right, back to my burnt sienna. This is the reddish brown one. I'm going to start working that up because, and then it gets lighter here. So I'm just going to keep working that up, connecting it to the layers that I just applied. And then going to my dark value. Okay, I'm jumping straight to my dark value because it gets really dark here. But you know what? We actually don't want too much of a jump. So I'm going to mix up a combo of my dark value and this one we were with the burnt sienna we were just working with right above it. And notice I'm not making a straight line. I'm actually cutting in, so it's a little bumpy, just to give it more of that furry texture. Curving it down around that highlight there, and then bringing it back down. I'm going to go back to my dark value because there's actually a subtle line right here. And I'll go back to the darkest value to fill in this area right by that headband. Now I'm going to add a bit of permanent red to my paint palette because I want to start adding some reds in here to really pull out those reds in this fur. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up this, I'm going to go back to this medium value above the darkest one, pull it up even more. Where it goes over top this area, okay? I'm going to bring it down now. Okay, and now back to my darkest value. I want to start filling in the white here, but again, the fur direction is going that way. So at this point here, I'm just going to be filling the white end, but once I get to here, I'll start moving my brush strokes in that way. And don't worry if this looks a little funky, we can always pull it up and shape it once we've added this first base layer. This base layer is not the pretty one. So I'm going to mix up another color that we haven't mixed up yet. I'm going to pull in some reds in with this medium value with our orange and brown. And I'll also add some yellow ochre to it. I'm going to add some white. Okay, so I'll go through these colors again. So it had a bit of this orange brown. I added some permanent red, yellow ochre, and white. I'm going to add some right here, just adding a bit more, another layer, and also a bit more reds there. Cutting in with that direction I showed you. I'm also going to add some right here. Not a whole lot of light getting hit on this part of the cheek, but a little bit. And these colors are, I think because they're so dark here, I'm going to test this out and go in with this medium value above it. Yeah, it's just too dark. So we're going to move on to the other side and then I'll start. Then we'll tighten things up. Okay, so let's work on the dark values on the left side. All right, so again, we started with this line, kind of helped direct our dark value. So what I'm going to do is work to the left of it and also to the right, going the opposite direction with our darkest value. Brush strokes are going to be curving around like that. Connecting it with this burnt sienna mixture, right? This one right here. Oh, too much of the dark value. I want to really make sure that I'm just using this one, cutting in and covering up more of that white. I'll fill in now, just right along this strip here. And I'll blend into that dark brown right here. I'm going to go back to my dark value because here it starts to get dark again. It's that raw sienna that really makes things look, it like dilutes the color. It's so thin. So don't judge a book by its cover just yet. That first cover, yeah, is not the prettiest one. So it's going to take a lot of layers to transform it. All right, so moving on around, I definitely need to add my dark value to the left of the eye. And there's a bit of a curve. There's a bit of a curve right here. Curves like that around the eye and then down. And that's where I'm going to pull in this medium value right here. And I'll bring it back up. I'll move to my light value for around the eyes, especially right around it. My brush is getting too thick, so I'm going to wipe off some of that paint, go to my light value. Add some around the right of the eye and below it. Working above. And there's a little bit that is getting highlighted, just the smallest amount around the left. I'm going to go back to my dark value because it's getting a little bit of a shadow from that headband. And now, do you notice on the reference, I'm looking at the reference, there's just a little bit of a dent, like a line indent in the fur. It's like right here. So we're going to end up pulling this up, but I'm shaping it now on this left side with the dark value. And I'm just going to fill that in. Just going to fill that in with the dark value, and we'll layer the highlights over top. All right, we're going to do surgery now on that fur with, this is my size 1 liner brush. I left a little bit out here. I'm going to get that with this medium value. All right, so let's work on that right side. I'm going to go to our light value and lay over top with our lines. I'm also going to pull in some of this orange. I'm going to pull that up a little bit so that we have that nice line. That's what my main concern is right now, just pulling that up so it has that nice curve on the top. And then I'll go back to those highlights. Okay, so this is my orange yellow mixture. Getting highlighted pretty strong on that eyebrow. I'll do the same on the left side. Add those sweeping highlights that give us insights to that eyebrow and the direction of the fur, how it's laying. I'm going to lift this area up right here. I'm going to test this color out because I actually think we need to lighten it up. This is our orange brown. I'm going to add more yellow ochre to it. I don't want it to be as light as the highlight, but we'll see. I'm skipping an area, and now I'm just creating the fur right there, right below the headband. And I want it to kind of fade to dark underneath there, so that's why I'm going back to my dark value and darkening that up. But I have gaps in between to show that there's some fur there. Now I'm going to go back to my dark value, but I'm going to actually add some red to it. I'm going to add some red and some burnt sienna to this dark value and darken these lines up. Is that too dark? I'm going to keep rolling with it. I might have to make that lighter. I am going to make it lighter, so I'm going to add some raw sienna to it. That raw sienna doesn't help. So let's go back. I'm going to add some burnt sienna, our mixture right here, the dark value, and I'm going to revisit those dark values, the same dark values that we added at the beginning. I want these to be lines that are nice and clean, that cut up into the medium values. I'm going to mix up some red and that orange. That's the permanent red and that orange. Going back to my dark brown. I'll also add some below it. Right here we did on that cheek. And now let's go back to our light value. We're going to revisit that, and there's going to be, once again, some more mixing that goes on. And hopefully we'll get some more of those oranges to stand out, and reds. I'm going to add just a littlest bit of that orange here, that highlight. Even more. And then I'll go back to another layer for my dark values around it. Back to my medium value. That's where I'm at right now. I'm with this medium value right here, trying to join this dark value with the medium values on the cheek. Oh, thank you, Vanetta. Thank you. All right, so let's let that side dry again. We'll do some alterations to the left. So I'm going to go back with my reddish. I have my burnt sienna, my dark value. I'm going to revisit my darkest values here. I just changed the direction again because we're on the left. I want to get more of that red in there, so that's why I'm pulling in some of this orange red. Now this is a looser, more abstract painting. You'll see that my brush strokes get a little bit more swishy and fluffy, and I'm not so tight. And I encourage you to do the same. I'm going to go in with our highlight. Go back to those highlights and add them again. Really pull them out. And also, I want to go add some of this highlight to the medium value here to do this area, just like we did there. There's an area we skipped that we can use this color in. There's just a littlest bit of a highlight there. We have a highlight on this side. And because that highlight is not in the dead center, it's a little off to the right. That's why we only have a little bit highlighted right here. I'm going to go back to the light value. Just do a little bit more shaping around the eye on the left side. That's a little too strong, so I'm going to tone it down with this medium value. Tone it down, just make it a little bit darker, not as light. I'm going to revisit my dark values right above here. Make sure they're nice, strong, and bold. And that's where we'll continue to the left. We'll go back to this fur. I'm going to move on now to where I'm going to fill in with a lot of this dark value. So hopefully you have enough mixed up to the left of that left side of the headband and fill in that shadow, that big gap there. You're going to see I'm going to cover up a lot of those lines that we have there because we'll just go over them. I'm going to take this all the way down. And I'll start to pull in some violet soon so we can blend it to that blanket and it just kind of blend in a little bit to the blanket. I'm also curling my brush strokes, curving. So I'm not going to take them straight down. They're not going to be vertical lines. They're going to be hair that kind of curves and rests on the top of the blanket. So if you're running out, this is actually burnt sienna and raw umber. I will join it here because of how dark the area is. I'll join it with the shadow on the dog's face. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, my brush is even clean because I actually want to mix it with this raw umber and some white. That's violet, raw umber, and white. I'm gonna add a little bit there. And then I'm gonna wash off my brush and just mix up violet and white and blend that up. So I'll show you what I mean. Just doing violet and white. I want to match it to that value there as best I can. And start blending up. I'm going to use my finger. And that way we can layer the first strands over top that, and it just looks like part of the shadow. I need a new paper towel. All right, so now the right side, I'm just going to mix up some more of my dark value. That was burnt sienna and raw umber. And we have less to paint on this right ear. The ears kind of bent a little bit more. I just mean it's like folded over slightly. So if you watch me, I am curving this around and back under, just like that. It's nearly going off the side of the canvas here. And then I'll join it just like I did the other side. And here, I'm actually just going to carefully paint without blending it to the blue. I'll actually cover that with our browns. I'm going to use a line just like that to start making it look like the fur. You see how I did that? Just using some dark brown lines. That's going to be the start of those dark strands by this right ear. And I'll bring this one up a little higher. See how I did that? Just thinning that left ear. All right, so let's start with our, do I want to bring that in even more? I think I actually want to mix up a bit of this, the dark value with this medium value. And what I'm going to do, this is going to be just slightly lighter. I know this is going to seem weird, but it's just slightly lighter than the dark value underneath. And this is going to be our base. And once it dries, then we'll go over with those strands of the lighter fur. I'm even going to take one out over top some of that dark gray. See that? Always want to layer so slowly from dark to light. And then I'm going to curl it under with this brown. All right, so next I'm going to do that same thing with the right side. It goes off my canvas a little bit, and then I get to paint in this gap right here. I will bring that down so it goes over top some of that dark brown. You see how I did that? Brought it down so it goes over top some of that, and they're going to be about the same. Where they fall is about the same. And then we're going to go back to our gray so that we can start painting in this white area. Even this back area we're going to do with a gray. I am going to switch up my water. All right, got some new fresh water, and now I'm going to make sure my palette knife is clean and damp, and I'm going to mix up a gray for the muzzle and back. Let me get some more white. Okay, so here I go with a little bit of black. I'm going to mix up a medium gray. And this is really, really bright because it's getting hit by a lot of the light, especially on the right side. So I'm going to add lots of white to that. So there is a medium gray. I'm actually going to add just a little bit more black to make that more of a medium gray. Okay, let's start with that medium gray. We're going to fill it in. I'm going to use my cat's tongue brush for this. Okay, I have my size 8 cat's tongue brush. Let's just fill in the bottom area. We'll start there. See, that's pretty dark. Isn't it amazing how light it looks on my paint palette, but how dark it looks on the canvas? So I can easily adjust because it's still damp. Just pulling in some white into that. I want to get that a medium gray. It's in this corner that it's going to be a bit darker. Also, where it's going to be a bit darker is right to the left, lower left of the nose. And to the upper left as well, I'll also get a little bit darker there with my medium gray. I'm using the point of my cat's tongue brush to do this. I'm going to go with more of my medium grays on the lower lip. You see how I'm kind of creating these clusters of lines to cut into the furriness at the bottom? Cute little lip. And create some texture over top our blanket. A little bit of fuzz. All right, I'm going to start adding more white as I move to the right. A lot more white as I move to the right. Here I go, putting in some more white. This is really almost white here. Oh, I didn't mean to go so dark. Okay, working on up and blending also. Adding more white. Getting all the way to the top of the head, that forehead, with this very light gray, which we will actually be cutting over top with some white strands into that reddish brown fur. And I'll move to my size 1 liner brush again so I can get in here. And while I'm doing that, I will use clusters of lines to create that fur texture over top the headband. I will switch to a liner brush for that, a smaller liner brush for that, because I'm finding that this just isn't thin enough. So I'm going to set that aside because I don't like to put my detail brushes face down. I'll leave my bigger brushes in there, but not my smallest fragile brushes. So while I have this, I'm going to start creating these vertical lines, but some are slightly off. Over top that headband. I really want to get rid of that line, which is why I'm kind of isolating some of these lines by that line, and then I'll add a few up. It's so cute, doesn't it? It looks so cute. And I will cut in with a few of these white strands over top. See how I'm doing that? Just very carefully. It'll be on the top here as well, on both sides. A few down here. And while I have this light gray, because I went a little too dark, I want to make this lighter. Excellent. I'm going to touch up that eye when we do our touch-ups. I'm going to go back to my cat's tongue brush. How we doing, guys? You doing okay? I'm going to add the medium gray. And when I say medium gray, I really do mean it for this back because it's not getting much light. Just at the top. Just the top, that's when I'll start to pull in that white. And the fur direction is actually going this way. So I want to make sure my brush is angled at that direction as I'm adding this first layer. And I won't cut in with my, like over top the background with my cat's tongue brush. I'll go back to my liner brush for that. There we go. Now, because I'm going to be adding that cute little mustache here, there's a little bit of what light gray that got there. I kind of want that darker in value. I want that to be consistent and a little bit darker because when we add that mustache, that's why it's not going to be lighter. And you can choose to leave the mustache out, by the way, if it doesn't suit you. Just thought it'd be a cute little fun addition, fun add-in. You know where I added some medium gray? This might surprise you, but I actually added some right here in where we added some of that orange brown. And then I'll go back to that medium gray to do the same thing, a little bit more, hugging the other side. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna add this. I want this to dry, still wet, but I'm gonna add the mustache over top. Are you ready, guys? Very simply, just going with our dark brown. And I first create the shape of it. I don't know if you've ever made a mustache before. I'm gonna make this top of it curve like that. And then the bottom will not go over the lips. If you watch me, though, I'll just leave a tiny thin layer so you can still see the top of the lip. And I'll join it, giving it a bit of that curve. My dad used to have a mustache like this a long, long time ago. I didn't like it. He didn't have it for long. And then I will actually be filling it in with this dark brown, but Not entirely, because I will add some highlights with this medium brown. Just pulled it in there. We'll add another layer of those highlights once this dries. I didn't add very many to the original, just subtle little ones. All right, now the key here is just trying to make that symmetrical to the right side. And again, not going over that lip. It's tricky, right? Trying to make things the same shape on the other side. If you don't like it, you can always, reshape it with the gray behind it. Thankfully, gray is pretty easy to like match that color. Cute. Now where I decided, oh, hi Denise, welcome. How I decided, I don't know, the mustache, where it came from, I just don't know. But thought it added some more character. So cute. I don't know why I'm seeing this now, but I'm gonna actually, maybe because I'm working on this mustache, I want to join this better. So I'm gonna go back to my violet and white. If you're still working on your mustache, that is a-okay. You probably don't have this mistake here. Doesn't look right to me. Just gotta clean that line up. And I still have more of this other light blue. All right. So I'm gonna start working on that area. I'm gonna mix up, my colors are a bit dry, so I'm actually just gonna mix up some raw sienna. Let's see if I can find room so you can actually tell where it is. Okay, so raw sienna with yellow ochre and white. That's what we're working with. And some orange. So yellow ochre, raw sienna, and white. And here we go with our liner brush. And I'm gonna start, a little too much paint on my brush. You see how I'm just twisting my brush to try and get some of that off? One line at a time. I'm gonna be layering them over top this dark area with a slight curl. Keep your hand steady as best you can. And I want to also do this in a way that kind of creates gaps, but also lots of overlap. If your brush gets too thick, you can either wash off your brush, make sure it's damp, and go back in. Just curving them at the bottom. And I want to add some more volume to the top, which is why I'm going to start cutting in over top some of the the medium gray. See how there's some strands that are kind of curving and sticking out? To darken up some areas, so like some of the first strands that are kind of inside tucked in, I added some more of the medium value to my brush. They're not getting as much light. I want to thicken up the bottom. So this is going to be the thin part, but it gets a bit thicker around the ear down here. My next live painting will be of a Saluki, and there's lots of curls in the ear. It's like a floppy ear with curly hair, and that's going to be a good lesson on curls and floppy ears. Okay, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to mix up some more. So that's the yellow ochre, raw sienna, orange, and our white. I feel like it takes so much paint to stand out, don't you? For this particular breed. It's a tricky one. Okay, that's a big, too much paint on my brush. I want to control that paint and the thickness by making sure I just have it on the tip of my brush. Okay, here we go. Starting on the outside, the thinnest point is up here. And now I'm going to have it curving around. And I'm going to go back to that medium brown, especially for this one. So it's not as light as the ones on top, and they're like sticking out. And I'll actually use this value that we just mixed up, the orange with some of our medium brown orange, and I'll add some of a highlight, a little bit more than we did before on this cheek. I'll bring it up to just like that. But then add even more highlight with this highlight, our original highlight. It still goes down and to the right a little too much. So I need to bring that out. I guess I'll just add, what could I do? I'll mix a bit of this highlight with the medium brown. and then darken up this side. That's what's confusing me. I need to darken up this side. So here I go. I'm going to add some dark value in with some of this orange brown. That'll help make more sense now. Whoop. Just need to make it a little bit more subtle because of that light source hitting the right. I'm going to add this highlight, just revisit it around here, making my lines a little bit more clean and precise. Again, this is an abstract piece, so leave some of those mistakes. They're not even mistakes. See how you can use them. I'm going back with my light value just to pull out those highlights even more. And then let us, before this dries, this brown orange, let's go around over top that dried muzzle or slightly tacky muzzle. And let's add little spots. I see a few in our reference, but I actually over-exaggerated it, added a few more, just because I thought they were so cute. These are like ovals. They're not super, they're not big. They're not small, but right in the middle. Add as many or as few as you'd like. And I'm gonna add, I'm gonna do something I love doing towards the end. I'll go in with yellow or pink or purple. I'm gonna add little dabs of light pink over top the nose, even more than I've already added. Just subtle little hints. Where the highlight is already, okay? So where that highlight is the strongest already, that's where I'm gonna add those pinks. I'm also gonna do the same thing with orange. I'm gonna add a little bit of, to make an orange, I'm gonna add some fluorescent pink with yellow ochre and some white. This is like my go-to for like a peach. And I'm gonna add some over top the Brittany Spaniel fur. Nope, not quite orange enough, so I'm gonna add more pink. And a little bit more orange, okay? Oh dear, I'm not happy with that color. Let's try again, okay? That is fluorescent pink, but a lot more than the yellow ochre. And some white. I'm gonna make sure my brush isn't super thick. Draw out those areas where the light is hitting it the strongest. Add little hints here and there. Add some to the ears. I'm going to do some touch-ups to those ears. I tell you, another coat just goes a long way. And then we'll add some more highlights to this mustache. I'm going to go in with my medium brown. I just added some lines. That's what I did before. I'm going to do that again. Just lines that kind of cut in around the shape of it. And I want to do touch-ups to that eye because I went over a lot of those blacks when I was adding the grays and the color to the iris. Oh, I'm gonna have to go over that gray again. I'm just gonna fix that gray right here. I'm also going to go back to this area right here. I want to add some highlights there. Not big ones. This is with just the light value we mixed up. I'm going to fix up this dark value right here above the eye. I'm going to fix it up, bring it out a little bit more. And bring this one down a little bit more. I'm back with my highlight along the right of that eye. I want to create a lighter color in between that dark indent. So I'm going to add some of this light value to our medium value and just join this area a bit better. That's helpful. And then go back to my light value. Bring that up slightly. Curving that around those big eyebrows. And I think what it needs, I'm going to add some of this magenta. This is actually something we haven't added yet to this portion, but we did when I added part 1. And I'm going to touch up my headband. And for that, I just use fluorescent pink, magenta, and lots of white. If it's on the lighter side, that's better, because that's where the highlights are anyway. That is if what I'm doing now is just getting the highlights, the highlighted area, but not the darker area underneath. And while I have this, these two colors, I'm going to actually add more magenta and fluorescent pink to it. A little too light still. And I'm going to richen up the colors in the darkest areas around that peach inner part of it. Oh, went over a little too much. I'll also darken up the area. See how I'm doing this? Making it more vivid actually too. The shaded area closest to the dog. Pulling out that pink. Wow, what a pink, I tell you. And up against that turquoise and the sky blue, it's just so beautiful. It's like definitely my favorite colors is the turquoise, the yellows, the pinks. One giant Easter, all the Easter colors. And while I'm on this pink, why not add just a few more dabs to the nose? Just can't resist myself. Can't stop myself, can't resist. And I think I want to go, a touch up that I see is I'm losing time here. I'm actually this is the last step I'm going to do, and it's going to be black with some white, dark gray, to touch up and cut into some of that peach hair around the lip. I'm going to go back to my medium gray and do the opposite. Cut in a little bit around that gray. I don't know if I got that. All right, creatives. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Again, part 1 is in the masterclass. This is part 2. And I'll see you in the next live or the next tutorial. Bye.